Hi, welcome to the third episode of Badminton Malta's podcast Just Hit It. Today we're going to speak with Justine Cammal, who is the Development and High Performance Manager at Badminton Europe. Hi, Justine. Welcome.
Hi, Chris.
Thank you for joining us in this podcast. Today we'll be speaking about development in Malta, but also in Europe and in Badminton Europe. First of all, Justine, just for us to know you a bit better, tell us a bit about you. How did you end up in Badminton Europe?
Yeah, a little bit randomly, I have to say. So, I come from France, and my education background is environmental law and coastal management. So I was working in the French public administration for sea conservation. I had the chance to travel a little bit around in the Pacific and in Canada. And I actually started badminton a little bit late. I think my first season in a club, I was 19 or 20, but I've always been a volunteer in the club. So it was for the tournament in the weekend, or it was for something for the team matches, or these kind of volunteer tasks that we can do in a non-profit organization. And I got really interested in the sport in general and in that community. And I actually was involved in a commission, in a sustainable development commission at the French Federation. For two years, I think, if I remember correctly. And actually, randomly, I saw a job offer in the end of 2019 on the Badminton Europe Facebook page. So I wanted to go back to a more international context compared to my previous position that I had in the French administration. And I got the job. So I moved to Denmark to work at Badminton Europe.
So now you're Development and High Performance Manager. What does it entail exactly?
Yes, that's a very good, that's a good question. It actually entails a lot of different areas. So basically, development and high performance, if I had to summarize everything, we want to have more badminton players everywhere in Europe. So our strategic plan mentions that we would like to achieve 1 million registered players among all our members in Europe, for example. So far, we have a little bit more than 800,000. So part of our job is to come up with projects just to attract more players. Okay. So that's one part of it. So it's to grow the sport in general. But then if you go to another level, it requires way more skills and way more topics to work on. So it's about working with our members to get them stronger in administration, in high performance, in communication, in marketing, in all these areas that will enable us to sell the sport and to make it even bigger. So in development, that means that we also work in para-badminton. To have more para players, to have more medals in the Paralympics. That means that we also work in high performance because we know that it's really interconnected. So to be able to invest in the grassroots levels, we also often need to show that we have high-level athletes and we have results at the highest level of our sport. It's quite diverse actually. All the areas that we can work on.
And usually success also attracts more people to the sport, so usually
exactly.
It goes hand in hand as well. So this being a podcast, part of a youth project as well, what is Badminton Europe doing to develop its youngsters and giving them more opportunity? As we know, in badminton nowadays, opportunities are much bigger than maybe what they were in the past. What is Badminton Europe doing in this aspect?
That's actually a big part of our development projects. We we are implementing a Badminton World Federations project, which is Shuttle Time. And Shuttle Time aims at giving every kid a chance to play. So the main objective of that program is to implement the sport of badminton in school, so that during your education, at one point, you will get to know, you will be introduced to the sport. So that's really, and it has been quite successful in Europe, to be honest. And in the last 10 years, we've educated thousands of teachers and hundreds of tutors in that program. And it's also interesting to see that this program was translated into 19 different European languages.
Okay.
So for me, that's such a rich cultural aspect of this program as well. It's about sport, but that means that someone in Germany can exchange with someone from Ireland or Hungary or Slovenia or Albania, because these resources were translated at some point in their own national language. So that's a program that is really easy to implement for our members. However, what we don't have yet in that program is the conversion to from kids playing in schools to the clubs. And that's something that we really need, or we would really like to develop, so that we're sure that some kids playing in a school in Malta, they have the information at some point that a club is there close by, and so that they can go to that club if they want to develop or to further improve their badminton skills. So that's something that we would really like to develop, because I think that it's a really good tool for kids to discover the sport. And it's also interesting to see that badminton is actually a very good sport for health in general. So it's also, I also like to think as badminton as a sport for life.
Yeah, definitely.
Because of course, if you play at a very high level, you have impacts on your health. That's for sure. That's one thing. But if you play regularly at a certain level, it also has very good benefits for your health. So yeah.
So then we're saying that the first step would be Shuttle Time, and in our case as well, this project just hit it as part that we're reaching out to students so that they have the chance to try badminton as well. And then in the next step, so let's say that someone right now starts playing badminton and they achieved, some level in badminton. What are the opportunities? For example, I know that Badminton Europe every year organizes its summer camp. So it's one of the opportunities that can help athletes develop further. What about that?
So we have a couple of different projects that actually can be really useful for young players. So we have the regional projects as well. So the principle of the regional projects is that at least 3 of our members work together to organize an activity. That can be a training camp, but that can be somewhere else. That can be a project around volunteers. That can be a specific tournament or cultural event that they want to organize together. We know that we have Malta, for example. No offense, it's not one of our biggest federations. It's not one of our biggest countries. But still, you have badminton players and you have programs to develop the sport. So it's also interesting for us to say, okay, if you want to work together with other similar members, that's also interesting. So that's something that we like to support as well. So through the regional projects. And then we have the summer school, which is one of the oldest badminton activities from Badminton Europe. And it's been quite successful every year. Now this year in Finland, we actually had even more players than before, even more coaches than before. So that was actually quite a big successful event, and it was for under 15 players. So that's also a good opportunity. You don't need to be in the top 10 of players in Europe to actually attend and get benefit from this activity. And then if you want to go further, or if you have a little bit older players at a higher level, of course we have the Center of Excellence in Holbæk here in Denmark that we are running, and that gives an opportunity for the players to have professional setup, professional training setup that they don't necessarily have in their home countries, especially if they are the only one having international tournaments or results, and that they don't have the necessary sparring partners, for example. So that's also an opportunity for them to train.
In fact, we already had a couple of Maltese players who attended this experience.
Yeah.
Of course, it helped them a lot because, as you were saying, Malta is not one of the biggest countries, so our setup is what it is. But of course, this gave us an opportunity to even expand further our horizons, because we are our players are training also with other
exactly
international players and gaining valuable experience, because I think one good thing about sports is when you mix up with other people and you learn from other people, and that's something that's really important in this aspect as well.
I think you're right, and the international network that you can get from these kind of courses, because we also organize education courses, whether for coaches or for administrators or for players through the player pathway program, for example. And that's something that for sure everyone can benefit from in Europe.
Yeah. So we know that Badminton Malta and Badminton Europe work a lot together, and I know there are some initiatives going on, and of course, but how does it work? So how do you work differently with Malta rather than working with England, with Denmark, with Germany? How does it work?
Yes, so that's actually, we were lucky enough to be in Malta for our annual Congress in April. So that was a very nice experience. So it's actually, being a small federation doesn't mean that you cannot participate in Badminton Europe's activities. So that's something that we really emphasize, because sometimes also we say, okay, we have France, Germany, England, we have big Denmark, we have big federations with big results, and it's difficult to find a way or find a place for other federations, but we serve all our members. So one of the tools that we have, it's actually the annual survey. It's a tool that can be a little bit of, how do you say, time-consuming task for our federations, and we are aware of it. But based on all those results, we can have a repartition of our members based on the number of players, the number of clubs, based on their staff, based on the resources that they have in terms of communication, participation, all the areas that we work on. And based on this annual survey, we drafted in 2020, we suggested some memorandum of understandings with each of our members. So far, as of today, we have 47 signed memorandum of understanding. So that's quite a follow-up, because that means that in all areas, we have objectives for us and for the federation to work together. Yeah. So some people want to focus on participation, some people want to focus on junior players in high performance, for example, and we try to tailor the memorandum of understanding with each of our federation based on the results of the annual survey and based also on their strategy. Yeah. So it's really a dialogue that we have, or that we're trying to have with each of our members, to be sure that we actually working for them and with them on the badminton development in general.
And what is the future looking like in this aspect? So basically, Badminton Malta has been involved with Badminton Europe for quite a long number of years now. What are the plans of? So we're saying that, okay, Badminton Europe is trying to understand the challenges and the positives of each member association, because of course the challenges the Maltese Association looks at are not the same challenges as the French Federation, the Danish Federation. But are there any other plans where so now we've put the goals in place, no? So what are the next steps? Are there any plans of trying to work together and maybe taking a couple of steps further?
Yeah, I think that the next steps will be in terms of memorandum of understanding, for example, for our small federations, or not small, but the not so developed in terms of badminton culture or badminton results. We signed for 2 years. So basically with Malta, for example, our first initial memorandum of understanding will end here now in December 2022. So by the end of the year, we will come back after the annual survey. We will come back to your federation and suggest some new objectives. But that's interesting because this MOU was the first cycle. So we were trying out a lot of different suggestions or objectives, but we were just it was during COVID or just after COVID. So we also noticed that we lost players.
Yeah.
So that's an exercise for us to do, saying like, okay, was that tool really useful? And we achieved this for sure in administration. It was quite successful for all our members because we educated some administrators and everyone attended our virtual ADM, for example, in 2020 and 2021. So those aspects were quite positive. But on the other hand, in participation, I mean, of course, there are things that you cannot control. So we can see that now we've gained a little bit of players compared to 2021, but we're not back at the level that we had before COVID. So it's also an aspect for us to think about how can we best support you.
Yeah.
If it's more education that you need, or if it's more projects around coming together with similar federations. So all these kind of questions are open actually for us.
Perfect. Justine, finally, how can our viewers, so we have a lot of young people coming from schools, how can they stay close to Badminton Europe? How can they follow you? How can they learn more about Badminton Europe?
Yes, so we are actually quite active on social media. So we have an Instagram account, we have a Facebook account, we are on LinkedIn as well. We have a website, and we have, of course, a streaming platform. So that's quite interesting because you can have hours and hours of badminton matches from young players to high-level players to world-class players. So there is a lot of different opportunities to follow Badminton Europe.
Justine, 15 minutes passed really quickly. They say time passes quick when you're having fun, so I guess
Exactly.
that was a good thing. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
Hopefully we will meet you another time and discuss even further Badminton Europe together with Badminton Malta. Thank you.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. If you would like to follow this podcast, simply visit our Facebook or Instagram page or our YouTube, Badminton Malta.